Big news today. The Dolphins have traded Jaylen Waddle to the Denver Broncos. I like the haul that they got in exchange for Waddle. Nice job by John Eric Sullivan, the Dolphins' new GM, Jeff Hafley, the new coach. Happy days are here again in Miami. Welcome to this edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. I am your host, Chris Perkins, your South Florida Sun Sentinel Miami Dolphins columnist. That is David Furones, your South Florida Sun Sentinel Miami Dolphins writer. As we said, the Dolphins have sent Jaylen Waddle to Denver. The trade, Jaylen Waddle goes to Denver along with a swap of fourth-round picks in this year's draft. The Dolphins, in return, get Denver's first-round pick, number 30 in the first round, as well as a third-round pick. And so they swap the fourth-round pick. So the Dolphins pick up two picks, a first and a third. So now they have 7 picks in the top 90, 2 in the first, 1 in the second, and 4 in the third round. It is a blockbuster, David Furones. Let's get your thoughts on this trade very briefly. Do you like it? What do you think about it?
Wow, well, this just turned into emergency pod. Can we get the horn? Can we get the horns going for the Furones pod? Our previously scheduled Dolphins deep dive for Tuesday at noon just turned into emergency pod reacting to the Jaylen Waddle news. So you're asking for a quick reaction. Yeah, Jaylen Waddle no longer here. Obviously a mainstay for this team for the past 5 years. The number 6 pick in the draft. Part of one of the most prolific passing offenses from 2023 when it was Tua leading the league in passing, Tyreek Hill leading the league in receiving, Waddle having a 1,000-yard season. They signed him to an extension. That was all under the previous regime. And now it's a whole lot of movement with Tua cut, now going to the Falcons, Tyreek cut, and we don't know where he's going to go as he rehabs that knee injury. Jaylen Waddle traded away. A little concerning maybe for where the Dolphins are with the receiving core, as Malik Willis doesn't have that wide receiver one, but you have more picks to go bring in some talent to fill that void.
They do, and it's amazing, Furones, that offense is done, right? No Mike McDaniel, no Frank Smith, the offensive coordinator. Ron Armstead, the left tackle, retired. Raheem Mostert cut. No Tyreek, as you said. No Waddle, no Tua. Like, most of the tent poles are gone. Austin Jackson, the right tackle, is still here. Pretty much that's it. I mean, that offense has been wiped out of memory pretty much. And it was such a prolific offense. It was so fun, so entertaining. It did some really, really good things, but it's now a memory. So, look. Welcome to all our viewers here on this emergency edition, this breaking news edition, this blockbuster edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like on YouTube. We want to remind you that if you miss any part of this show, you can catch the podcast on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. So on this show, we're obviously going to break down the Waddle trade from all angles. We're going to talk about what you expect, what you like, what you didn't like from free agency overall. And, you know, we got the Furones bonus. David Furones is going to break down the 5 most impactful outside free agent signings for the Dolphins. So we're not going to put Willie Gay in there. He's a returning free agent signee, but we're going to talk about the outside free agent signings. And really, after that, we're going to talk a lot with you guys and take a lot of your comment and your reaction on this Waddle trade. As we always say around here, there's an ocean of possibilities. Let's dive in. There we go, baby. All right. So, you know, Furones, one of the things that you brought up and that I liked, or that I thought about rather, with this trade was, who does Malik Willis throw the ball to? I had a column that was ready to be filed and posted for today that was talking about how I'm happy that the Dolphins are focusing on offensive line, and that, you know, the offensive line is ahead of the pass catchers, ahead of the wide receivers, ahead of the tight ends, because you redid Austin Jackson's contract. He's staying, so you have your center tackle thing, and you have Jonas Abai-Naya, and you just had to find the right guard. Forget all that. Forget all that, Furones. I don't know what's going to happen to this offense this season. You do still have a decent offensive line, which can help Devon Achane as a runner and a pass and a receiver. You've got a tight end in Greg Dulcich who can catch the ball. Malik Willis is agile. He's got a strong right arm. So the offensive line should help Malik Willis. He just has no one to throw it to, but again, I like the trade. I like that it gets them 2 first-round picks. I like that it gets them 4 third-round picks. You've got enough ammunition to remake this entire team, I would say, in a 2-year span, this draft and then next draft. And I'm not saying that they're going to be Super Bowl contenders after 2 years, but things are looking up for this rebuild. That's my kind of going a little bit deeper into the initial reaction for us.
Boy, and you brought up one thing earlier, was that from the 2023 team, you mentioned Austin Jackson and then Devon Achane as a rookie. If I'm looking at the depth chart of the offense currently, those are the only guys still around. So that's just fascinating. I know they're not, John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley aren't using the word rebuild. It doesn't always have to have connotations of being adjacent to tanking. That's not what it is to rebuild. But it's a reset. This roster is being reset. Like, it's out with the old and in with the new in a big way here. Now, it takes me back to something that Sullivan said when we were talking with him at the Combine, was when he brought up how many picks the Dolphins have, just answering another question. He stated, we only have 8 picks. So this was before the trade, right? So he was referring to the 8 picks they have as only. So you could tell he wants more. He wanted more. And then the obvious way to get more is, with the roster that the Dolphins currently have, is dealing a guy like Waddle, and you find a team who's deep in the first round, picking late in the first round, was a contender last year, figures to be a contender again this year, could figure to improve that passing offense for Bo Nix. So, a wide receiver needy team, a team that wants to upgrade at wide receiver, that's a target right there to go ahead and add a late first-round pick and more. You get another third-round pick. So now 7 in the top, so at least 100. I'm not sure what the number is on the third
90.
round. Well, that was when it was 5 in the first 90. But now this new third round.
Oh, yeah.
It might be between 90 and, I don't know the exact number right now. But, so to have 7 in the first 3 rounds, you are really going to infuse this roster with a lot of young talent. So you could find another, possibly a first-round receiver. It could be one of those guys now at 11, where I wasn't really looking at wide receiver for that 11th pick. I was looking at edge, at corner. If one of the big tackles like Francis Mauigoa drops there, I would love that. But you could look at wide receiver there. You could look at wide receiver at 30. So one of those picks could go to a wide receiver. We know the Packers in the past wouldn't go first-round pick wide receivers very much, but you have a lot of opportunities to just add on to this roster with young talent. And then I also wonder about Malik Willis. That side of things is now he doesn't have that top target to throw to. He can throw to Devon Achane out of the backfield, he's electric. He can break away short passes. He can run routes almost like a wide receiver. You can line him up out there. Bobby Slowick is some continuity there as far as the same offense. But he's got speed with Tutu Atwell. Maybe Jalen Tolbert can bring back some of the stuff from his 2024 season with the Cowboys. Greg Dulcich is a nice piece as a pass-catching tight end. Malik Washington maybe can develop as a slot receiver. And you're going to add in this draft. So it's not going to be with Waddle, but the Dolphins offseason is far from over with all these draft picks they have. There's going to be a lot that they bring in this draft.
There is. There's going to be a whole lot that they bring in this draft and the next draft. Before we go on, let's say what's up to some folks out there. Bigote1775 says, we are cooked. Peter McDowell checking in from frozen Toronto. The Penguin has been traded, Peter says. Pretty boy. It's a great day to be a Dolphin fan. We are finally doing things the right way. We're going to have like $200 million in cap space next year, LOL. Fitzgrass says, tear it all down. Welcome, Fitzgrass. Cap for life. Let's go. JD the Great One is out there. J1364. Jesse Drager says, while the Fins won this trade, Denver should be pretty darn good next year. Knicks needs to step up his game. Chris the bartender checking in. Good morning from the snowpocalypse. Says, sucks to see Waddle go when they already needed receivers. Tim Corey is out there. Hey, Perk, is HN safe? You think HN is safe, Furones? I think that he is, but I really didn't expect this trade. If this trade would have happened, I probably would have expected it closer to the draft or maybe on draft night. So I think HN is safe. What do you think, Furones? Does this kind of shake that confidence in HN being safe?
No, I think he should be. I think now this is the move that they made. Unless Sullivan is really thinking, okay, ship out what was already there and really stockpile picks. But he kind of already did that with this move. I mean, he's in a great position now with picks in a little bit more than a month in this late April draft. So I think that's the move he can make. And you probably figure the return is a little less for a running back, even one with Devon Achane's abilities. So you could get more. I don't think you're getting this again in an Achane deal. You would get less of a return. A wide receiver 1 caliber player, that's someone that you get this kind of haul for. A first round pick, a third round pick, and fourth round swap. So yeah, I would lean that Achane is safe, but I think they'll listen. I think they'll listen to offers. If something just blows them away, then I'm sure there's a certain price where they'll give up Achane and find another running back, especially if they don't see him in the long-term plans. But I think Sullivan does want him on the roster, and I think he's got it in mind to go to the negotiating table later in the offseason. He mentioned this at the Combine, that it would be later in the offseason to go and find an extension potential.
Yeah, so, and, with this trade, Waddle sees Mike McDaniel twice now. Mike McDaniel being at the LA Chargers and Waddle being in Denver. They're in the same division there, so they'll see each other. And also a reminder, I'd always bring this up, a strange thing. You remember that 70-point game? The Dolphins did that without Jaylen Waddle. Yes, he had a concussion. Yes. He missed that. And they scored 70 without Waddle. Just another quirk of this offense and that era, just kind of how things were just crazy. Rashawn Broken Bro says, what up, guys? I'm okay either way. The Waddle trade, he is small and got banged up in his big moments. That was what reminded me that he missed the 70-point game. Jaylen Waddle was pretty tough, though. It was, did he miss consecutive games, Furones, off the top of your head? I know there were a couple of occasions where he would miss a game, but he was a pretty tough guy for that size. I don't know that he missed consecutive games. I'd have to go back and look.
I don't think consecutive. No, I think you're right.
Yeah, I don't think he did. He's a pretty tough kid. Dave Harbor checking in from San Diego. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Now, this is Douglas Anderson says, how funny is this trade? Waddle just did an interview where he said he wants to beat the bleep out of Patrick Surtain, his old Alabama buddy. So now
I was thinking of that.
Right, now they're on the same team.
Yeah, and I did think, and update, they have been on, so Jaylen Waddle, as we started the show, posted on IG story a screenshot of him FaceTiming Surtain, and they're all smiles, can't wait for it. So obviously some friendly banter where, they know they can talk their ish to each other when he's talking about for wanting to fight him.
Exactly.
Now we can fight them all training camp when they go out in one-on-ones.
That's right. That was a funny video. Waddle was always a lot of fun. Let me ask you this: what are going to be your memories of Jaylen Waddle? Because I always say it, and I do say that my best memories of Tua are just like dapping him up in the locker room. And remember when he talked to us and asked us, should he allow Hard Knocks into his house? Just the casual conversation. Those are like my best memories of Tua. Waddle, it'll probably be that big smile of his. Waddle was always smiling, always upbeat, always in a good mood. That's probably what I'm going to remember more of Waddle than his on-field stuff. I'll obviously remember the on-field, but I always tend to remember guys kind of off the field or when we see them. So with Waddle, it's going to be that smile, that upbeat attitude, joking around like he was with Pat Surtain and that big smile of his.
Yeah. Us sports writers with the access that we are fortunate to have, where we're in the locker room and we get to see players for who they really are. Sometimes I know a lot of them try to push that down and shield themselves and how they really interact with teammates when we're in the locker room as media. But some guys, you really do see their true selves, and I think Waddle is just genuinely himself at all times. He smiles a lot. He's a fun-loving guy, likes to joke with teammates. I know when you put the cameras in front of him, then maybe he's maybe cautious, tries to get cautious with what he says. Definitely wasn't cautious with that boxing interview. Is that what that was? A boxing interview? Yeah. But yeah, so he wants to beat the bleep out of Patrick Surtain. But yeah, that was a little bit of a difference out of it. That was more like his real self that you might see in the locker room, like, shouting at Tua or shouting at Tyreek, who actually now none of them are around. So hopefully we got some similar personalities that will be in that locker room now.
Dead Street checks in and says, after this draft, we need to have a solid O-line core, a solid edge core, a solid secondary core, and a solid tight end core. Not sure we can do anything about linebackers or wide receivers. Let's.
By the way, and it is 94 overall, the third round pick. So it is now 7 in the top 95. 94. Yeah. 94 specific.
Right.
I feel like when you say top something, you want to have a round number. So.
Right. 7 in the top 94 sounds kind of stupid, doesn't it? Top 90, top 95, but whatever. Yeah.
I feel like that's a very specific number that, like, you would say where you would play it off like, I think top 94, but you know exactly the number, and you're saying, I believe it's 94. It's around 94.
That's right. That's
you know the exact number, Perk. We get it.
That's my round number, Furones. 94. That's it. Let's see. I saw something else on here that I wanted to talk about. Let's see here. Ross can't do the penguin dance anymore, Dead Street says. That is true. That is true. We will miss that. Let's see. K Liberus says last year's receivers are next to go. Yeah, I mean, there's not much left, is there? I mean, you got Theo Weiss remaining from last year, Taj Washington, Malik Washington.
Yeah, Theo Weiss, Taj Washington, Malik Washington. So now you have Tolbert and Tutu Atwell.
Yep.
So A.J. Henning is still around.
A.J. Henning, that's it. A.J. Henning.
Yeah.
That's
Terrace Marshall Jr. also brought on early in the offseason. So that's the Dolphins' current wide receiver situation. And then a player to be named later, at least one in this draft.
Yeah.
You got to figure there's going to be one coming with those 7 picks in the first 3 rounds.
That's right.
Maybe in the first round. We'll see.
Ooh, boy, that would be interesting. That would be very, very interesting. Malik needs somebody to throw to. Furones,
if it's like Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson, like some of these first round receivers now, they're legitimately in play at 11.
They are. They all are. I agree. Furones, let's migrate over into our next segment, and we're going to talk about likes and dislikes from free agency and kind of what you see going ahead in free agency. Malik Willis is obviously the big one, and I wasn't in favor of it. He's here. I'm not going to rail against it, every week. Let's see what he can do. He's got a lively arm. He's agile. Obviously, John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley know him very well. They're kind of staking the first part of this rebuild on him. So I'm a dislike, but I'm not gonna, rail against the guy or wish that he does not succeed. I want him to succeed. I want the Dolphins to win. Other things that I do like kind of the offensive line emphasis. I mentioned restructuring Austin Jackson. You got Jamari Sawyer in here. You got Charlie Heck in here as a backup swing tackle. Sawyer is a guy who started 6 games for Tampa Bay last year. He's a candidate to start at right guard. And then I think I'm missing another offensive lineman. Am I? They got Sawyer.
Sawyer and Heck are the offensive linemen.
Okay, yeah. So I like that they've kind of, with Austin Jackson, Sawyer, and Heck, they've kind of bolstered the offensive line, I guess you could say. And then really after that, they have, look, and we know that they don't have a lot of money to spend, so they have gone after some corners. They got Lonnie Johnson in here at safety, so they paid some attention to that. So Malik would be my dislike, and then paying attention to offensive line and the secondary would be my likes. The Zane Gonzalez thing, this is very minor at kicker. We'll see, because this is Chris Tabor, the new special teams coordinator. This is his kicker. Riley Patterson did a good job, but competition, that's not a bad thing. So we'll see how that works out. But I was comfortable with Riley Patterson, but we've got some competition. Those are my likes and dislikes early.
Hey, competition never hurt nobody. Last year, we saw same scenario with the punters, as the Dolphins brought in a new special teams coordinator at the time, Craig Aukerman. He had his punter from the past, Ryan Stonehouse, that the Dolphins brought in, and Jake Bailey, who was kind of on a little bit of a down, people were down on him for his punting. Before that, Jake Bailey wins the competition, so credit to Aukerman. He viewed things from an unbiased perspective, didn't lean toward his guy from the past. And then he went with what he saw, which was Bailey was the head of Stonehouse. And then Bailey had a great season last year for the most part. I know then eventually had one returned on him. So that kind of brought some of the net averages down and whatnot. But still a very great season for Bailey. And then he got paid 3 years, $9 million as a punter with the Atlanta Falcons. Good for him, and a great guy. Love seeing him around in the locker room while he was here. So we'll start with Malik Willis. When I've been on with like Big O show early in the offseason and he's big on building the rest of the team, don't go quarterback now. And then I was more with him at first. And then before it happened, I was starting to come along to the idea, well, hold on now. If it's at a reasonable price, I like taking a shot on Malik Willis. I don't want to, if he's going into the 30 million plus per year range, with the salary, if the Cardinals or the Vikings were going to pay him that much, then, I didn't want to go all the way up there for a Malik Willis who is still unproven, doesn't have a large sample size, even though the flashes that we've seen lead you to view him as a desirable option. But for someone unproven like that, I was thinking 20 million. You sneak up a little bit to, what was it, 22.75 per year, if I got it right. So I'm okay with that. I like taking a shot, kind of like, especially after reading Hyde's column before free agency started. Hyde was maybe one of the ones that got me along his line of thinking of, no, take your shot at finding the quarterback. These guys know him more than anyone else. They know him better than anyone else. Everyone else is guessing and projecting based on the limited film we've seen. They have a lot more that they've seen from Halfley coaching against them on scout team, going against them as a defensive coordinator in Green Bay. Now he'll be his quarterback here as he takes over at the helm with Miami. So he's got a great idea of him. Sully's got a great idea of what he is like behind the scenes, his desire to want to improve and continue to get better. He talked about it, that he was not ready back then. He's made some strides, now feels ready for the moment. So let's see. And it's not a big commitment. You can go get rid of him in 2 years if it's not working out. And that's the same time when you stop paying the Tua Tagovailoa dead cap hit. So then if you want to reset at that point at quarterback, you're fine. You'll have a lot of money. You can spend on the biggest free agent in that free agent class at quarterback. Trade for a guy. You could move up to take a first-round quarterback if you see one that you like in that draft. So I like taking a shot at quarterback. So I will give it a positive grade there. And I think what I dislike, because it's just all small, minor moves all around. Uh, Maybe if they would have found one like real surefire, okay, there's one of your starters in the secondary. I don't think we know that with any of the guys. It's just going to be, it's a lot of these minimum level contracts or just above. So I still don't know if any of these guys are true starters. Darrell Baker, we'll get a pronunciation hopefully when we meet him. Which one is it? But he started a lot of games, but that was with Tennessee. All right, that's not a good roster. So I do want to see if he could translate over and be one of those guys or any of the other ones. I'm just not sure they have found even one starter in the secondary.
Yeah, and let me say one thing about the Malik Willis thing that I read Hyde's column and I understand what he's saying. The conviction. You remember the last administration had conviction about Tua with his extension. So I'm glad that there's conviction, but that's not necessarily a selling point to me. The other thing with Malik, and I really hope that this happens, is that his price tag goes up in the 50 million range pretty quickly if he has success these first couple of years, right? And so at that point, the Dolphins have to decide, what are we doing with Achane? What are we doing with Aaron Brewer? What are we doing with Jordan Brooks? The Waddle question has been solved. He's not going to be part of the core going forward, but you've almost got it. Bringing Willis in at the price that you did, which I think is a good price. I agree 100% with you. It's a good price. You're not spending $30 million on an unproven quarterback. You're spending a reasonable amount. However, you've got to really hit these next two draft classes, because if he goes off, then his price goes up and he's in that $50 million range and your free agency options go down. So these two drafts, and look, I know Sully and Half understand that when they made this trade, when they signed Malik, when they took the job, I'm sure they were asked about this by everybody, Troy Aikman and Steve Ross and Dan Marino and everybody. What's your plan? What are you thinking? And I'm sure that they shared this, but if Malik goes off, his price tag in 3 years is going to be 50+ million. And you better hope that you hit on these two drafts, right?
And maybe even, the way the contracts are going up, we might be talking $60 million.
Yeah.
But then maybe there's also a correction in this. Maybe we just saw Sam Darnold win a Super Bowl, and maybe teams will start to pivot. Like, okay, the Cardinals didn't like what they got out of Kyler Murray. The Dolphins didn't like what they got out of Tua. The Lions paid Jared Goff big money, and he's been good. They were the number one seed, not last year, but the one before.
Yep.
But then they were out of the playoffs this year. Then maybe the NFL could correct itself and be like, okay, let's not pay all that money, like every quarterback that is due for free agency or due for a contract extension. We're not going to make him the new highest paid quarterback. Let's bring it back down a little bit, because you could build a team like Seattle did and then find Sam Darnold, who has been cast off from 4 or 5 teams and found success on his previous team, who let him go for a first-round quarterback that they liked, and then that didn't turn out well. I'm talking about the Vikings with J.J. McCarthy. So, you could find deals like that where with a great team around you, you can still win. So we'll see if the market maybe corrects itself a little bit too.
And to put a bow on this segment, Furones talking about likes and dislikes of free agency and what you're expecting going forward. What are you expecting going forward? Because for me, I think it's going to be what we just saw is a bunch of minimum salary contracts, a lot of 1-year prove-it type deals. And I'll say this, because we got Chris the bartender says, but where is it? Where he said, oh, here it is. Right now, this team is on the 2019 level. If you're going to watch the Dolphins, it's out of morbid curiosity, not excitement. With all due respect, Chris, I would say that to me, this year is about laying a foundation, right? And so that's why I'm not you can't afford very many decent players. You're going to get some money after June 1st, but you can't afford very many good players. This is about building a foundation. It's about setting a standard that this is how we want things done. I'm not too concerned about the one-loss record. Now, I don't want to see a 4-win season unless they have a lot of injuries and stuff like that. But this, to me, this season is more about setting a standard than winning, 7 or 8 games, trying to improve the record from last year.
Yeah, and while you don't want to see a 4-win season, I think if you start like the Dolphins did last year, it was 1-6 and then 2-7, right? At that point, you might want to see a 4-win season, maybe even a 3-win season, because I think the Dolphins really took themselves out of some good draft picks that they could have had the last 2 years, actually, by winning some games later in the year. But not to say now, this group, they're going to be about winning on the field. Like Jeff Hafley can't go in the second half of the year and try to tank. No coach is doing that. No players are actively trying to do that when a lot of them, especially this team, they're on 1-year contracts. They got to prove themselves for their next payday. What their on-field performance could lead to that next big contract. So no player, anyone who's wishing to tank, like no player is going to abide by that for you. The players got to take care of themselves and really the team. It is about winning at the end of the day when you get into it. But if you talk about what I would still like to see in free agency, I guess I'll go exactly where I just did with corners. The Dolphins still have 2 who are pending free agents, who are their top own free agents from this class: Rasul Douglas and Jack Jones. I think anyone else on the outside, you're looking at just minimum contract type of players to be brought in to just get entrenched into that competition across the board at different positions. It's just who's going to surface among these groups to see if you find some starters. But at corner, and then I would like either Rasul Douglas or Jack Jones. Both of them were late signings last year. Jack Jones early in camp, right? Was it even before camp, or was it during the first week of camp? I think it was first week of camp. And Rasul Douglas after training camp. It was actually on roster cutdown day, and then he was signed, and then he figured into the 53 for the Dolphins. So, and he had a great season by all metrics and in his coverage. So a culture setter would be him. He's got previous ties with Green Bay. Also, this team wants to get younger, so might not make sense from that standpoint. But certainly a guy who could set the culture for younger players, but also someone who values winning. So if he can go somewhere else where he can compete for a championship, where they need a corner, a veteran corner like him, then I wouldn't blame Rasul or the Dolphins for that matter, assuming they are trying to get younger.
Want to say what's up to Dorian Sims. I don't think Kendall Lamb is going to be back. He was kind of a late addition this year. He might be retiring. We'll see. That was a kind of a possibility last year. And before we move on to our Furones bonus, this one real quick by McCorbaciero. Anyway, says I'll butcher. I'm sorry, I just butchered your handle. They could have gotten more for him, meaning Waddle. Very quickly, what are your thoughts on that? I like what they got. What are your thoughts?
No, I think getting a first, number one, is a good return for Waddle. But remember, he didn't have 1,000 yards in either of the past 2 seasons, number one, and hasn't made a Pro Bowl yet. He's a good wide receiver, number 6 pick in the draft. He's not Jamar Chase, who was number 3 in that draft. Was it 3? He was taken early, I think, or 4. I just know the Dolphins could have had him if they had their original pick. If they kept their original pick that year at 3, they traded back with San Francisco, traded up with Philly. So ended up with number 6, got Waddle. It wasn't Chase. So he hasn't made a Pro Bowl. Last 2 years, under 1,000 yards, especially being more of the top dog. This past year with Tyreek Hill, had some games like that Buffalo game, but I think you get a first, it's late first, and then also you net a third. Yep. So a first and a third, that's a good return for a player like Jaylen Waddle, who plays a valued position, but still he's a very good player, but not a Pro Bowl caliber player. He hasn't made one yet. So I do see that as a strong return for Waddle.
Yeah. I wonder what the reaction is from Brandon Beane in Buffalo, who supposedly they were rumored to offer a first and a third. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Late last season.
Now at the trade deadline last season. Now also when interim GM Champ Kelly spoke with a few of us in Madrid shortly after that, then he kind of shot that down a little bit.
Right.
So he said not everything that was reported was true. Right. And I think it was specific when he was asked specifically about that, being offered a one. So that kind of seemed to indicate like, no, maybe the Dolphins would have pulled the trigger if they got a one, but they didn't quite get a one. That someone else said that, and that was maybe a little bit off the mark. But I do understand putting a higher price or on Buffalo trading with you because you don't want to strengthen your divisional foe. So I understand. Yeah, I mean Denver could get a better price than Buffalo. That's for sure.
Yep, 100%. All right, you know what time it is now, baby. It is time for one of the top 4 segments of this 4-segment show. It is the Furones bonus.
Oh, the Furones bonus.
I love it. I wonder if that happened when Bam Adebayo went for 83. If they shot him off like that.
Bam.
That's right. Yeah.
Channeling Michael Biamonte.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Mike B, baby. All right, Furones. This Furones bonus, you are going to tell us the 5 5 biggest value picks, the 5 most significant picks, 5 most impactful signings that the Dolphins have had of outside free agents this year. Is your show running?
Okay, well, I'll start from the top then. Malik Willis. You got to go Malik Willis first. I don't know if you got him number 1. I know you're a little bit iffy on the whole deal, but I'll say, hey, you took a shot at a quarterback, someone who can bring you mobility, which you haven't had. I mean, Tannehill had some of it, a former wide receiver, but really the Dolphins haven't had much of that in their history. Now you get like this ultimate, possibly the fastest quarterback. I know his 40 time is up there with like the athletes on the outside, like wide receivers and running backs. So you were going to have him with Waddle speed and Achane speed. So now got to correct that in my mind. It's not going to be Waddle, but Tutu Atwell's very fast as well. I'm sure they're going to get someone fast in the draft, especially at wide receiver to make up for for sending Waddle away. So Malik Willis, big arm. Can make plays down the field, can extend plays, can run, taking himself when he has to. I think he's improving on all the mental quarterbacking aspects of the game, reading defenses, running an offense. So I think Sully and Hafley feel confident in him to continue to progress. So I'll put him at the top. Number 2, now with Waddle being traded, I might have to say either Jalen Tolbert. I might have to go Jalen Tolbert and Tutu Atwell 2 and 3, but I'll combine them for number 2. Like just one of them. We need one of them to rise up and not be a Jaylen Waddle, but just be a productive receiver who can go and complement whoever they bring in the draft. Can complement. Maybe Theo Weiss is taking another step as a possession receiver. Can complement Malik Washington, who hopefully makes strides as a slot receiver and can add some depth into his routes a little bit, not just take screen passes or the pop passes on jet sweeps behind the line of scrimmage and run with the ball. Kind of add some more into his arsenal. I would like to see him add to his game, but one of those wide receivers, I need them to be the number 2 most impactful guy. Then at number 3, I'm going to go to edge defender, and I'm going to say Josh Uche has to step up as a guy who has had an 11.5 sack season. So I think you need him to find some level of that, start turning those pass rush wins, which he has had in his rotational duties since that season with the Patriots in 22. It's hard to crack that Philadelphia Eagles defensive front rotation. So obviously he's not going to be a starter on that group, but in spurts, he had some good, strong pass rush win rate metrics. If he can start turning those into sacks and more pressures and hits, I need him to be a guy on that edge along with Chop Robinson, and probably they're going to be looking for guys on the edge in the draft as well. But if it's Ojabo, if it's David Ojabo and not him, I'm good with that. So similar number 2, I'll say one of them. One of them has to be number 3 as your edge guy. Number 4, I'm going Jamari Salyer, potential starting right guard as the team lost Cole Strange in free agency. So I'll go him. He's got some versatility on the line, has played left tackle plenty, but I think guard will be his spot. And then we'll see if, between him, Jonas Savaiinaia, maybe another guard they find in the draft. There's going to be competition, but you have a potential starter in Salyer, who was actually one of the better Chargers offensive linemen, despite that group failing miserably to protect Justin Herbert last season. So he was one of the. It wasn't all his fault. It was mostly the other guy's fault. so he's okay, according to Pro Football Focus and people who grade these things and grind all the tape. And then number 5. I talked about it a little bit, but just give me someone from this all those slew of defensive backs. If it's Baker, if it's Lonnie Johnson, if it's a Zane Anderson guy from Green Bay, if it's Marco Wilson, a South Florida kid coming back home, give me someone who is going to step up and be a starting caliber DB that you can count on. I don't know who to pick from that group. I don't know these guys yet. I just know them as names and faces and maybe watched a little bit of them play. But I want to get to know these guys and then see them in the Dolphins scheme in training camp and OTAs first before before figuring that out. But one of those guys has to be number 5.
All right. Let me ask you this, Furones, before we close this out. So we talk about Malik Willis being impactful. And by the way, you guys might hear construction going on in my place. If Malik Willis does not work out, where is your faith level with Sully and Half in drafting a quarterback in the first round? In other words, Malik, the guy that they know, if he doesn't work out, do you have confidence? Just go pick another quarterback in the first round, or are you kind of like, this could be dicey? Where would you be in that hypothetical?
Well, from Green Bay, Sullivan knows the strategy of you keep bringing quarterbacks in. Whether you have a guy, you still bring some guys that you like. If it's later, mid-round, late-round draft picks who you can develop. I think Green Bay saw an opportunity in Malik Willis because they saw a lot of the things they liked, and that's why he rose to another level again after he fell in the draft, went to Tennessee. They went in another direction, first with Will Levis, eventually Cam Ward now. But I think they still saw the potential, and that's why now he became a coveted free agent. So he came from Green Bay where they've done this a lot. So they hit on Jordan Love. So I like the track record there. I think he's picked up a few things. I would still bank on it, even if Malik Willis doesn't work out. I would still bank on that. He has picked up a few things, can identify quarterback talent. And even if, let's say, Malik doesn't work out, who's to say that they don't take one third round? I mean, with those 4 third-round picks, why not grab another quarterback that you like for the middle of the draft? If it's like a Garrett Nussmeier or a Carson Beck who improved his draft stock with the combine, guys like that who could go in the middle rounds. If it's the Arkansas kid, and now I'm blanking on his name.
The tall skin, Taylor Green.
Taylor Green, yeah, very athletic, tall, big, athletic, who could probably run similar concepts as Malik Willis. So, keep taking shots. I would trust them. I would still have faith in them. And it doesn't even have to be the first round. It could be later. They find a guy and he could come up and do it.
Yeah, Dak Prescott, mid-round guy, right? Yeah.
Russell Wilson was, all those years. Now I'm not letting you off the hook. You got to do your top 5.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, quickly at least. I mean, give me something.
Okay. My 5 most impactful. Malik is the most impactful signing. Whether I'm for it or against it, that is the most impactful signing. You can't deny that. Number 2, I would say Uche, because you need that. I'll throw in Uche and Ojabo, David Ojabo, both the edge guys. Number 3, I'm going to go Salyer because that's an offensive line guy. Boy, four. Do I want to? Four. I've got to go with. I would just say one. The cornerbacks combined, because we don't know. But again, you're trying a Jack Jones, Rasul Douglas thing, right? That maybe one of these guys is on a prove it deal, and he turns out to be one of your answers. So one of the corners, I don't think more than one of these guys that they've signed to this point is going to turn out to be starting caliber. And then number five, I guess I'm going to go.
You haven't said a receiver.
What's that?
You haven't said a receiver yet.
I have not.
You haven't said a receiver.
And I'm not going to. No.
Okay.
Number five.
Even with this Waddle news.
Yes. They're not. I don't think they're going to be impactful. I don't. I think Lonnie Johnson at number five, maybe Charlie Heck at a backup swing tackle, but because Austin Jackson has the propensity to get injured. But I'm going to say Lonnie Johnson because I think Dante Trader, I love Dante Trader. I think he'll be one starter at safety, but you need another. And so maybe Lonnie Johnson is that guy. So those are going to be my five most impactful.
Wait a minute, Perk. You're a big special teams guy, and you're not going Seth Vernon, the UFL punter?
No.
Chris Tabor bringing him in? You're not going Seth Vernon?
Look, Zay
Put some
Gonzalez.
respect on his name.
Zay Gonzalez is my guy for special teams, so we'll see.
But he's got to win the competition against Riley Patterson. It might still be Riley Patterson next season.
It might be, but he would be more impactful than a lot of these others as a kicker. He would be a very impactful signing. He would affect
if he wins
the
competition,
losses.
he would have a huge impact.
Yes. So that's my that's what I'm going with right there, Furones. So that's my five right there. And
no love for Tucker Addington, the long snapper.
I hate to see Joe Cardona go. That was one of my guys.
I do. Yeah,
I hate to see that. So So anyway, he's probably doing some naval service right now. So that's his daytime job. This is his moonlighting job, the long snapping. So as he told me.
Well, he's bound for the Rams. Yeah, I guess he's got a few months where he can do that, but then he's got to report for duty with the Los Angeles Rams. That's
right. All right, Furones, let's migrate into our final segment, and we're going to kind of open it up to our viewers here because the final segment is, who do you think will have a better season, Malik Willis or Tua? But if you guys want to weigh in on that, and if you have other thoughts on the Waddle trade acquisition, if you have thoughts on who's remaining from the rebuild that started in 2019, I know there's a lot of people who have thoughts and things to say. So feel free to fire that in. I'll get us going on Malik versus Tua very quickly here because I think it'll probably turn into a Waddle thing. Tua is kind of, who really cares right now. But, I'll say this. I think that I like Malik Willis' skill set, and I think he will have a better season than Tua. Tua remains immobile. Tua remains a high injury risk. Now, Tua, his NFL resume is obviously more complete than Malik Willis's, a guy who has never been a starter. But I think Willis, on an inferior team, will have a more productive, more promising season than Tua. That lack of mobility and that injury risk, Furones, I just can't get over that for Tua.
Yeah, I hear you on that. All right. So the question is, Malik or Tua will have a bigger 2026 season?
Yes.
So I could take Tua with Bijan Robinson back there, Drake London to
Kyle
throw
Pitts.
to, and Kyle Pitts.
Yep.
All right, let me not.
Is Chris Lindstrom still there? The offensive lineman? I can't remember. He's always been good. The guard, is he still there?
Yeah.
I think he was with them last year. Yeah. So look. He's got the tools, but Furones, I don't know. I just that he can't escape. He can't run. He can't move. Furones.
No. I was just building that up to then do like a Lee Corso shift back.
Not so fast.
There are so many reasons I could go with Tua Tagovailoa. But give me that headgear, and I put on my Dolphin, and it's Malik Willis. So yeah, I'll play to the hometown crowd here, and go Malik Willis. So Finally, mobility in at quarterback in this Dolphins offense. I think it's going to be electric. I think it's going to be very fun to watch. Even if not, first I envisioned it with Jaylen Waddle to throw to, and how Malik Willis can extend a play. Jaylen Waddle is, going off his route where maybe he wasn't open to begin with and can go get open. Malik Willis hits him. Achan with extra time to get open. Everyone will, because that translates to the receivers having more time to get open, go just play backyard football once the play breaks down, and then the route was going one way, that didn't turn into anything. Now you can just pivot the other way as Malik scrambles or rolls to the right side. Boom, he hits him for a big play. Like all these different visions that you could come up with those guys together. So it won't be with Waddle now. I still need to see what Malik will ultimately end up with. I think, I think I saw Mel Kiper is now changing his pick for the Dolphins at 11 to Jordan Tyson. So while we have been on this show, in reaction to this trade, I figure he'll have another wide receiver similar to Waddle, younger, maybe not as ready immediately as Waddle, but he'll have at least someone else to throw to. And especially with what he can do with his legs, I'll do Malik Willis, or I'll go with Malik Willis. But I could totally see Tua having a successful season. If he takes what he has learned from last season in staying healthy, that was one thing. He was able to keep himself healthy. It was the interceptions last year. It wasn't his availability. He started every game that he was the starter for. So and played and remained in the game. If he can combine that with bring back some of the success of 23, like leading the league in completion percentage in 24, leading the league in passing yards in 23, in yards per attempt and passer rating in 22, like be that quarterback from that era while staying healthy, then especially with the weapons that he has in Atlanta, he could have a strong season. I would not be surprised. And especially with some of the struggles we've seen from Michael Penix, if it turns into a little bit of a Ryan Tannehill situation in Tennessee, how you saw he had success with his next destination with the Tennessee Titans, but it was time for the Dolphins to move on, and it could totally happen. Maybe it works well for both. That's what we can all hope for.
Yep. A couple of good guys. Dorian Sims says Tua will have the better year unless Miami brings in some weapons on offense for Willis. Chris the bartender says it's hard to say Malik because we don't know who's going to be here. So for now, I'll say Tua playing like 8 or 10 games in a dome. Bigot 1775 says, I believe Tua is more proven than Malik Willis hype. Peter McDowell says Malik is a dual threat and Tua has a limited skill set. So I see Malik doing a lot of great things this coming season with a few bumps in the road due to the roster being so young and inexperienced. Dead Street says Tua will be hurt. Boxing Bill says Malik's upside far outweighs Tua's downside from day one. Bigote 1775 with an interesting, who is better, Tua or Doug Flutie? Wow. I remember the Flutie Flakes in Buffalo and the cereal and all that kind of stuff. I remember that hype.
I would need more of, because I only had football consciousness, very late in Doug Flutie's career. So I would need more. I need to look up his season by season. I know he had a lengthy career, and obviously I know him growing up in Miami from being the Boston College quarterback who threw the Hail Mary to beat the 1984 Hurricanes in the Orange Bowl, so in the classic finish. And I know he was still playing like into the mid 2000s, and then he had the drop kick against the Dolphins with the Patriots to finish off the 05 or 04 05 season, 05 season, I believe. So I need more context to Doug Flutie's career. He's been a Pro Bowler. Doug Flutie made a Pro Bowl or two in his career. Do you know that?
I can't remember. I can't recall.
Okay.
Let me ask you.
Tua has that.
Let me ask you this, Furones. How do you think Tua will do without Tyreek Hill and Mike McDaniel? I don't think it's going to be good.
Yeah, I mean the offense was inclined to benefit him. Quick releases. I mean, they could work a lot of the same thing into Atlanta. And he's still going to have Drake London to throw to there. Has a good tight end in Kyle Pitts, big target. You saw what he could do. When he had Mike Gesicki originally, before Gesicki's role was kind of shaky under McDaniel. But Tua was throwing well to Gesicki. He could throw it up to him like that when he skied for in the back of the end zone, around the crossbar in Baltimore. Before they started that comeback in the 2022 Week 2 game. I mean, he could do those kind of things. Like we've seen it with Darren Waller last year. The times he had him, a couple Monday night games where he went for 2 touchdowns. So he could work with Kyle Pitts. He could work with Drake London. I mean, I can still see it going very well for him there. Because the Falcons got to see him as a fit. And especially, they don't. The ball's going to spin the same way from the left-handed throwers, both Penix and Tua. So it all just. I said it on this show. I saw Atlanta as the destination for Tua the whole time.
We have our poll results so far. Malik 82% to have a better season, and Tua 18%. So that's where we're at right now. Bagging up 40.
Totally not a Dolphins biased crowd here. Let's make that clear. It's totally not. That everyone's unbiased. It's a very even-keeled, neutral vote that we have going. I'm sure Falcons fans would say the same thing.
Right, of course. I mean, come on. We're all about fairness here, right? Yeah, we're unbiased. Bagging up 40 says wide receiver core was ass before, and now it's really ass. Your thoughts on the your thoughts on the bootylicious wide receiver core. By the way, Jordan Tyson, who you mentioned, he's the Arizona State wide receiver. Just I know people probably know that, but just throw that in. Ass or no ass wide receiver core?
What is the level of ass?
Right. The big ass. Right. Big ass, small ass. Right.
Yeah, right. Total ass, steak ass. We have gone off the rails here. All right, incomplete ass. We still don't know.
Flat ass.
Yeah. Let's start saying butt instead. This is a family program. The level of butt.
All right. Booty. That's it. So we'll end on this one. Joseph Whalen says, "Can't believe we traded Waddle." Well, I like the trade. I didn't expect it. I like the trade. I like, the way that John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley are thinking. I like the return. I really don't see a downside. They'll get another Jaylen Waddle. By the way, I kind of look at Jaylen Waddle as a Jalen Phillips type first round pick where they're good guys. I'm not sure that either of them is ever going to make a Pro Bowl. I'm not sure that Jalen Phillips is ever going to have double-digit sacks. I'm not sure that Jaylen Waddle, he could have another 1,000-yard season, but I think just having Tyreek and having the Mike McDaniel offense really helped. And then before that, he was pretty much the only option, right?
Rookie year of that Brian Flores, George Godsey offense.
Yeah. So I'm
very low yards per catch, but he had 100 receptions and 1,000 yards.
Correct. So I like, from the Dolphins standpoint, I like everything about the Waddle trade. So I'm with you, Joseph Whalen, that you can't believe it. I didn't expect it, but I think it's a good trade. I give it a thumbs up. I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, I think it's a good return for Jaylen Waddle, especially going into some years where, if we're being honest, we don't expect, who's expecting the Dolphins to go make a playoff run this next season? Not me. I just hope now this offense can function as well as you have, Perk, in a hostile, raucous environment, as you have done on this show with all that construction in your background. Hopefully this Dolphins offense can travel and perform in hostile environments like you.
We're all rebuilding, baby. We're all rebuilding. Dan Sprink says, here's
I like it. Very good.
Dan Sprink says, here's a poll question. What happens first? The Dolphins make the playoffs or the construction at Perks is completed? Bagging up 40 says construction for sure. Again, this is part of the state mandated.
I hope for your sake. Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, for your sake, it's a construction.
Yeah.
So you don't have to deal with that anymore.
Exactly. These are the state mandated construction things from Surfside, blah, blah, blah. My building is 60 years old. It was built in 1966, so we've got a lot of stuff going on. But hey, it's right there on Biscayne Bay. I can see downtown. So when this construction is done in 2036, I'll have my view back, baby. It's going to be great. That's the show for today.
Wow. So your building's 60 years old. So you were just out of high school when it was being constructed.
You know what? Me and the building were built in the same year. I'll say that. I will say that.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
That's a little insight into old ass Perk here. Yeah.
Okay.
Insight.
Well, Perk, you don't look a day over 60.
Thank you. And I won't be until November 6th because that's when I will be a day over 60. So that is David Furones. I'm 59-year-old Chris Perkins. We will see you next time on Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk.